Stephane Duproz is the CEO of Africa Data Centers. Stephane, it's really good to see you. You're in Paris at the moment, and you have a really tough lockdown. How are you, firstly, and how is the situation where you are at the moment in France?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Hope you are well too. Yes, I mean, in France, the situation is not the best at the moment. Everything related to COVID is unfortunately getting worse. And we are all, like everybody else in the world, waiting for vaccination to spread a little bit stronger, so that we get to a situation where hopefully, we will be able to meet each other. And I'm obviously, looking forward to be able to travel to Africa as I used to be doing before.
Well, it's really good to see you, and we wish you well, and we hope to see you very soon when it does settle down. It's been a very interesting time when you look at the flourishing economies, and Africa hosts many of these flourishing economies. We often hear of some of the strongest economies, growing economies situated in Africa, as well as the stagnant ones. And it's been interesting to see how technology has played such an important role during this lockdown period. What is that relationship that you've experienced as the CEO of Africa Data Centers between a mature ICT ecosystem and a flourishing economy?
Well, as you are aware, Africa Data Centers, as the largest network of data centers over the continent, operates in several countries, and is answering requests for other countries to see their digital infrastructure being set up. So we currently speak to more than a dozen countries all over the continent as far as putting the foundation of their digital economy being the data center. And what we are seeing is that everywhere, that consciousness is there. Everywhere, leaders understand that not only with data centers and digital economy that resides in those data centers will they be able to make savings on their government activities, but also they will trigger the creation of a new way of doing business that will generate lots of positive things for the country, and sometimes simply unlock their country and actually also the people living in those countries. So we are really seeing that consciousness absolutely everywhere.
Now, Stephane, you really raised some very interesting questions over there when you talk about digital transformation and you talk about the economy of these flourishing countries. And you say that the data center is the foundation of Africa's economic transformation, and you've seen this incredible digital transformation taking place over the last year in particular on the continent. How do you give the data center such significance in this economic development and transformation that you're talking about in relation to what you've been talking about? It's quite significant that you've highlighted the data center specifically.
Wow, that's going to be a hell of an answer. Let me take it step by step.
Right.
Everywhere in the world, the most precious thing now in terms of business is data.
Yeah.
And data lives in a data center. Africa represents today about 15% of the global population, and yet only 1% of the data center capacity, meaning the capacity for Africa to keep its data on its soil. So what we are seeing here is that we have, in addition to the fact that it's a large population we're having in Africa, it's also both a very young population, so very keen on technology, and also an extremely creative population.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yet that creativity has not been able to express itself sufficiently, in my view, because there were no infrastructure for the African data to be in Africa.
Right.
So, typically, let's take a very simple example. You're probably using WhatsApp.
Yes.
And a lot of people are using WhatsApp in Africa, everybody around us is using WhatsApp, really. Taking videos, showing the new baby. So showing the new baby, you take a little video and you want to send it to the grandmother that is in another country in Africa. So you upload your video to a server somewhere, which is in a data center.
Right.
Well, that data center is not in Africa. It's somewhere in Europe or in the US. So takes time to upload it. And then when the grandmother downloads it to actually watch it on her phone, the same principle applies. So, for WhatsApp, it's a bit annoying. Latency is there. It's a bit annoying, but, it's not the end of the world. When you're talking business, it's a bit different. And it's not a surprise if we have seen the actual start, deployment, explosion of the digital transformation in Africa begin with and together with the deployment of cloud capacities from the major cloud providers that are, most of the time international. I'm obviously talking about, the Microsoft, the AWS, the Google of this world. They have been the one who have actually triggered that because they are a key component of the digital transformation, as they allow that creativity I was talking about to express itself, as they allow young companies to start having a digital infrastructure at an affordable price. They also allow more established companies like banks to launch new products, new services that are more easily accessible to the people, to their customers. And that capacity of cloud capacity is in data centers. So, in other words, if you wish, the data centers are the place where that capacity sits. So that's the reason why I'm saying it's the foundation. But it's also the crossroads. Because once that data, our data, sits on that foundation, that data needs to be accessible. If you have a shop that you want to create, you're not going to create it at the end of a dead end street. You're going to try and put it in a place where multiple roads can come, because it eases up your customers to actually access your shop. It's the same for data. And data centers are where telecom companies also come to be able to distribute that content. So the data center becomes the foundation. We've seen that. It's also the crossroads where telecom operators meet with each other, interconnect with each other, and actually creating the internet. The internet is nothing else than private networks interconnecting with each other. Guess where they do that? In carrier neutral data centers like Africa data centers. So basically, not only do you have the computing capacity that is in one building, but also that building is connected through dozens of roads. It's a roundabout, if you wish, so that data is accessible to everyone, considerably reducing latency and considerably improving the performance of that flow of data.
Wow. I mean, it's really interesting the way you've put it, and it makes complete sense when you talk about the latency and the importance from a business perspective to have the correct latency and the reliability. So you must be very encouraged, Stephane, when you look at the likes of Huawei and Microsoft and AWS. And I mean, there's so many people that are coming into the space of data centers, investing billions and billions of dollars on the African continent. I'm trying to remember the last time I remember this kind of investment in data centers happening in one specific continent. It's been a while, so it's really encouraging to see over the last 24 months in particular, the big players coming in, investing huge amounts of money. And we're also hearing about many of the other players who are also investing in these data centers. So that infrastructure you've just spoken about is really happening right now. And that must be very optimistic for you in terms of talking the dream that you've been talking about, spurring that economic growth and really creating that transformation on the continent. I mean, it's going to have a significant impact.
It really has. The names you have mentioned are already in Africa.
Yes.
And actually we are serving them. I cannot myself say any names, but only a few of them are building their own capacity. Most of them come and use third-party data centers like ours to better improve their time to market and also to meet their own customers. Because we are Africa data centers already serve hundreds of enterprise in Africa, and what I'm talking here are corporations, companies, organizations which have an IT infrastructure, servers, and that have finally decided to outsource that, take it out of their existing, sometimes obsolete server room or data centers that they can't afford to maintain or revamp, and it doesn't make sense for them to do it anyway. And I've migrated that infrastructure of servers into a professional data centers whose core business is only that. So we have banks and mainly financial services. We are a key leader both in South Africa and in Kenya, and actually those corporations come for two things. For three things. The first one is have their digital infrastructure, their servers, in a data center that is more secure than if it was in-house, because that's our job. We've been doing that for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And we only do that. So it's a focus. We go to bed every night thinking how we can optimize, and we wake up every morning thinking about data centers only. So that's the first thing they come for. The second thing is that once they are in a data center, they realize how much money they save. Because they don't have to take care of their server room or data centers anymore. And that is very costly, particularly if you don't have our experience of dealing with it. Also, as I said, in data centers like Africa data centers, we have dozens, hundreds of telecom operators in the same building. So our customers, when they come, they have direct access to a highly competitive telecom market. They are paying their connectivity much cheaper than when they are in-house. And they are saving, obviously, a lot also on data center related staff costs and all of those things. So it's a huge cost saving exercise. And the third thing the reason why they do that is to interconnect with our other customers. So, typically banks interconnect with each other.
Yes.
Bank interconnect with, some special suppliers of theirs for, typically, real-time stock exchange data, and that creates some kind of an ecosystem where, financial services being under the same roof can talk to each other at a much faster pace and with reduced latency. And that saves time, that saves money, and that creates new opportunities. And obviously, the other people they want to interconnect with are the cloud providers. And in turn, the cloud providers, when they have to choose where they want to locate their own platform, they want to locate it close to their customers.
Exactly. And we're a global village. Everything's interconnected today.
That's what data centers are very often seen by people with less experience as a warehouse where you put equipment.
Yeah.
It's much more than that. Much more than that. I mean, not all of them are, but the ones who are going to be the more successful and generate most of the growth are going to be the one who manage to create those ecosystems. And that creation of ecosystems creates digital hubs, which in turn help local economies. And that's the reason why, those ecosystems that I am explaining here, we are operating them very successfully and to the benefit of our customers who can interconnect with each other. In South Africa, in Kenya, we are building currently in Nigeria. But what we are seeing is that a lot of countries are talking to us now to say, why don't you come and create that digital hub in our country too? Because building a data center is already something that you need a lot of experience for.
Yes.
That's not easy. And I'm seeing plenty of projects all over the continent that are not optimal because of lack of experience. But once you've built a data center, comes how do you operate it? And how do you, within its walls, create that ecosystem, that crossroads, that hub that is going to help the countries? And that very few operators focus on that and know how to do it.
But Stephane, I mean, you raised some very interesting issues over here because, there's an explosion of data centers. There's no doubt about it. People think it's lucrative. Many people don't know what they're actually doing. They're in it for the wrong reasons. They don't have the right expertise. When you look at the data, I mean, EUDCA and I think it was Talam Analytics have basically said we need 1,000 megawatts, we need 700 data centers just to meet this demand that's happening on the continent. I mean, it's literally going like this. It's wonderful to see, but I think that we also need to be realistic of the expectations that we have, and also, of course, the consequences of not meeting the demands that these analytics are presenting to us. And of course, having those data centers in the right geographic locations is also key. So there's a demand, but we need to do it properly, right?
Absolutely. And one of the first, I mean, what we have seen, I'm African, but I was up until 3 years ago living in Europe. I actually still have my family here. And when I joined, I very quickly realized that it is. I hear a lot of people saying there is lack of skills in Africa, and that makes me angry. Of course not. I mean, who are those people asking those questions? There's a huge amount of skills in Africa. I mean, the African peoples are as skilled as any other people. What is not there, obviously, is what I came up with, which is 20 years of experience. So the first thing I did was to bring other people from the US, from Europe, from UK, from Asia to Africa to help with bringing that experience. And we mixed those people with the skills of our African team members, creating. Obviously I have led leading data center operators in Europe for 20 years. And when I come here, I'm not replicating what has happened in Europe. That would be a terrible mistake. We are creating the African way. But we do believe that creating the African way means being African for sure, but it also means mixing that African skills and experience with the global experience. And we Africa Data Centers is actually now a global operator, a global company operating in Africa.
Right, right.
And when you want to serve the international customers, like the cloud operators, those guys want to have the same level of service in Africa than they have everywhere else in the world.
Absolutely.
It is as critical for them as it is in Europe or in the US.
Quite right.
So obviously, if you have served them for decades in other countries, and you bring that experience to an African organization, then you get to a mix that is extremely successful because we can anticipate. We try and avoid some of the mistakes we've made in the early days of the data center industry, and that is what we are doing, creating a globally compelling African way of doing things.
And I think that's a key in what you've just said there, is that yes, we are unique geographically, but the service levels and a cloud center is a cloud center. It operates exactly the same way, and you need to service the customers, and you've got service level agreements to see. There's nothing different about it. So really interesting that you raised those particular points. But when you look at the cloud infrastructure, Stephane, I mean, it's nothing new. I mean, the cloud's changed a little bit over the last few years, and in the last 3 years in particular, we've seen the cloud maturing. But the cloud is nothing new. But what has spurred this demand on the continent itself? Well, what do you attribute this spike in demand on the continent?
There is a very strong need in the most mature countries to go to the next step. I mean, there are some extremely successful large corporations in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been operating in terms of their digital tools in a way that is a bit old-fashioned. Basically because there was a lack of third-party data centers and a lack of cloud capacity, and they were eager to use those new possibilities to go to the next step of their life as an organization, as a company. So they were really eager to see that. So that's one dimension of it. The other dimension of it is that capacity has been created in Africa, and the large, in particular, cloud operators. It's not that they didn't want to come to Africa; they knew that the demand was there, as I've just said. But again, they were not trusting the data center capacity enough to actually start deploying large capacity. And the first one to come was, I can't give the name, but you will probably know it easily. The first one came with strong capacity in South Africa, and that shows Africa Data Centers, and we delivered capacity for them. Since then, that capacity has more than tripled, by the way. So it shows that they are meeting success and consequently they are requiring more data center capacity, and that is one of the reasons why every year Africa Data Centers has doubled its capacity.
Wow.
And we are doing it again this year.
That's very impressive, Stephane. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that you're doubling is actually quite amazing. It's extraordinary when you think of the cost and you think of this growth. I mean, congratulations to Africa Data Centers. I mean, that's incredible growth. And I guess when we look at the analytics I mentioned earlier, and you look at this growth, it's not going to slow down. I mean, it's going to get even faster. And I guess where you've outlined the benefits of the demand, why we need data centers, the importance of where the data centers are, the skills, etc. Building a data center, as we mentioned earlier, is not an easy thing. Can you outline some of the challenges that you face as Africa Data Centers, specific to building data centers on the African continent, and how you're overcoming those challenges? What kind of challenges do you face?
It's a very important question. Just trying to link that question to the one before. One of the reasons that has created also that now it's kind of explosion of the cloud capacity in Africa is that now the cloud providers have identified data center operators of trust that they can rely on to deploy. Challenges are mainly linked to the fact that most of the manufacturer or of the key pieces of equipment for a data center do not manufacture in Africa. Can be in the US, can be in Europe, can be in Asia, and then you have to have that shipped to wherever you are in Africa. So that adds on to the delays. So typically, due to that, the time it takes to build a data center. Building a data center, building the world is not, the most complicated thing to do, even though it has its own challenges in Africa, like everywhere else in the world. But the key component of a data center is the equipment that you put in the world, and if those equipment takes longer to come, and sometimes that duration is increased by time spent at the custom, for example, then that doesn't help. So dealing with customs in terms of custom costs, and as well as in terms of time for the customs to be cleared, is one of the challenges we are facing. So what we are trying to do, though, is try and prefabricate a lot some of those equipment. We're not prefabricating at data centers at all, but we pre-assemble some of the equipment so that it saves time. And we are now also starting to have those assembled in Africa as well.
And creating job opportunities as well. I might add to that. I mean, that's a big thing you've just mentioned. Is that if you can transfer some of the the setup costs to be happening on the continent, I mean that's a really big win.
Oh, we are African. Let's be very clear about that. We are absolutely African. We do not operate anywhere else in the world. And our, when I wake up in the morning, I have a job, right? But beyond that, I have a mission. And that mission is digitizing Africa.
I love it. I love it.
Africa data in Africa and actually bringing it back. And we can do that because we create the infrastructure for that data to stay here. So, that logic of improving the life of each and every African goes beyond business. It is also what we are doing can help local economies and local people having a better life, and that starts with jobs.
No, I absolutely love that, Stephane, and it's such an important point, and well done to your organization for having that strong focus in this regard. Now, anecdotally, I guess it's, you've been talking about it, and I see your eyes lighting up every time you talk about the value that the cloud is going to add to people's lives on this continent. And I mean, when you look at the average man on the street, what does this infrastructure mean to people like myself, to your everyday person that's out there? And I guess the faster internet access is one thing. Having the data stored on African soil is another thing. And I guess it's going to bring big things to businesses who are looking at hyperscalers hosting in those African data centers. I mean, you cannot even begin to try and put it into words and descriptions how important this is and what a difference it's going to make to people's lives and to businesses, right?
It's I have always, when I was leading data center operators in Europe, and me as an African, born in Africa, raised in Africa, I've always thought to myself, one day, the thing that is going to leapfrog that gap that sometimes we are seeing Africa having on the global economic scene, that gap is going to be bridged by internet and the digital capacity. Because let me get back to one thing to add up to what you've just said, that I already mentioned earlier. That African population is incredibly innovative. I mean, there are in Africa services, digital services, that are not here in Europe. Everything related to personal banking is hugely developed. We at Africa Data Centers have digital labs where we help new startups to develop by helping them having a bit of a infrastructure so that they can start. And we are seeing incredible startups in Africa. So in addition to having a better daily experience with your personal digital tools, in addition to allowing the your African suppliers to provide you with more advanced services because there is digital capacity in Africa, it uncorners, unlocks a lot of that creativity. That is what is going to, in my view, bridge the gap that Africa sometimes has on the international economic competition.
Stephane Duproz, the CEO of Africa Data Centers. You've left me feeling so inspired, and really it's been absolutely amazing talking to you, and I love your optimism. I love your dream, and it's actually not even a dream. You're making this come reality, and when you look at what you have portrayed and the work that Africa Data Centers is doing, there is going to be an economic growth like second to none on this continent. You can feel it, you can sense it coming, and it's just wonderful to listen to your optimism and the incredible work that your organization is doing. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to chatting to you in the next 12 months again, when we're going to look back to March of 2021 and say, you remember last year this happened, this is what's happened this year, and here is the economic growth to prove what we were talking about a year ago.
Will be with pleasure. As much as it has been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you very much, Aki.
Thank you so much, and be safe, and we look forward to seeing you in person once this COVID-19 pandemic settles down. Stephane, thank you for your time.
Thank you.